Okay, let me get over to YouTube. I'm hoping it's going to work this time. Okay. Let's see what we got this time. Okay. Well, I can at least see myself on the screen. Chat hasn't come up yet, so let's see. See if we get all of the things. Come on, don't be a dick a third time. Okay, well, at least I can see things. Can you guys hear me this time? Anybody? Yay, it's a miracle. How are you ladies doing this evening? And probably by the time I get on here, Mari's probably headed off to bed because she doesn't really stay up late. She's an early riser. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what? You saw my hands. Yay, hands. Okay, let me get some stuff moved around. I have a serial killer prepared for us this evening, and I have lots of stuff sitting around. I am working on a page. I'm working on this page. I took the so I did this while I was waiting for everything to restart. This is this is another case of somebody who was killed and then we killed the killer. So she's the victim of the other killer. Then I've got a little bit of information here. And this was the card that was already started inside. And I'm just adding more information at this point. Aww. That's a little bright, isn't it? Okay, let's get that pointed up and away a little bit. So I've just been working on this while you guys are. I added the word murder to a piece of chipboard. I made it into a pocket for this picture. Like I said, this was already in there. And this was already here. So I added him. That's our killer. David Michael Kentner. No Els. Els doesn't do this anymore. It's just me. It's a solo act. So I need something for right here. I have a bag of buttons. Maybe a button will work. Let's see what we've got in here. All right, Carla, I'm sorry that I feel bad. I know contract's in, but I feel like you just got that job, even though it's been a little while, you know? I feel like maybe I want to punch somebody in the face, which is not my usual, you know? I think about it. But normally I don't punch people in the face because, you know, jail and stuff. I don't want to go to jail. What other button do we? I like threes. I like things in threes. How about that? Do I like that? Let me look on the screen. Rebecca, how you doing? You're okay at it? Well, R.I.P. the good food, right? But theoretically, now you don't have to clean those coffee pots and conference rooms. Work is work, you know. So we'll use those 3 buttons. I kind of like those together. Let me figure out what I did with my Gorilla Glue or E6000, whatever it is. I may have to get up and get a pair of pliers because it's been a hot minute. She's a contract worker. They hire her out to different places, and she does whatever job they need doing, you know. And contract on that one is over. Okay, I found a pair of pliers. I don't need that string. Okay, pliers. I try to wipe all the extra glue off, but a lot of times it's stronger than my fingers can deal with. And a deluxe locker. Nice. Who doesn't need a deluxe locker? When I worked at Target, you could barely fit your shit in the locker. So we're going to add on a few buttons here. I've got to start having some needle and thread ready so that it looks like they were ripped off shirts or whatever. And this is a little tiny button. Because, you know, women's shirts always have those stupid tiny buttons. Hey, Mari, welcome back. Finally, sound. I told you sometimes you're no longer a copy monkey and a me. Okay. Okay, so I think we're just going to clip her on here and slide it into the pocket. So there's so the story here is this is our killer's an English professor who's killed 8 former students. This was the most recent victim. and that he dumped the bodies, you know, in watery areas. I'm gonna go with this is Louisiana, right? I think that's where this picture's from. So he's dumping the bodies in the water, and he's gotten away with 7 other ones. And he probably would have got away with this one too, because he's killing former students after they've left, you know, where he's not associated with, you know, as a person who sees them on the regular. He's a stalker and a murderer. So we did a return favor. We murdered him, put him in the water. That's a yeah, bayou. That's what I figured. I recognized the trees and stuff. And look, you can see where there are submerged trees. So we'll put it this way, actually. So look, we accomplished something. So we're looking at a serial killer today. I have an abalone shell. I got to find, I got some jewelry from, well, I can't think of who it was right now. And there was a nice, you know, but it's big and textured. It goes right here. And then we're just going to add a little bit of other information. But look at that. While I was restarting my computer, I basically finished a page. It's good for what doesn't fit in the locker. I'm at my company center. I stuffed 359 by 12 envelopes and made 147 quilled booklets for nice. Very nice. Well, at least you weren't, you know, lacking for things to do. I hate it when you got to make up work to look busy so they don't send you home. Okay, so are you guys familiar with today's serial killer is John Edward Robinson. And he was active from, let's see here. I know I wrote it down. Like 1980. After 96. I thought I wrote it down. They ran 2 and 3 corporations now. They run 2. Okay. So they've got lots to do. And not related to Mrs. Robinson, no. Although there was a Mrs. Robinson, married to him for 41 years. And when he finally got arrested and sent to jail the last time, she divorced him. He had, let's see. I wrote it down. I think he had 4 kids, I think. Because he had a pair of twins. That song is stuck in your head now. I'm sorry. So, John Edward Robinson, also known as Slave Master, was considered one of the first internet-related serial killers or killers of any kind. He didn't start out this way. He started out with other, you know, petty crimes. Listen to the serial killer sing the earwig. Before and concurrent with being, and or working up to being a serial killer, because you need to have at least 3 victims. He started out as an embezzler, a con man, a forger, and he was also accused of kidnapping at some point. Yes, this is a true murder. We're discussing an actual serial killer He was active in the late 70s. He was born in 1943, so he was active in the mid to late 70s through the early 2000s. There are mixed. I watched 5 or 6 videos. There's a mixed opinion. Some of the and articles and stuff. Some of the stuff says his father was an abusive alcoholic, and that his mother was a strict disciplinarian. But other sources say he had a normal family life. I think he was the middle child in his family. So I couldn't really get a solid feel, but I feel like a lot of serial killers do tend to come from unstable backgrounds. So I'm inclined to believe at least one of his parents was not very nice. At his first, I don't know how many, like, I don't have a full work history or anything, but 2 of his first crimes where he got jobs by forging documents. Like, he started out, he tried to go to seminary school, and he didn't make it through that because he had a lot of disciplinary actions. And then he went to be a radiographer to do that. And so one of his first jobs, because he didn't finish the school program, was he forged the documentation to get a job as a radiographer, and then he embezzled money from the company. When they caught him, he went on and did this at another job. So he was arrested for embezzling in 1969 and 1971. He was basically perpetually on parole for this kind of crime. He forged checks. He stole money from his jobs. He cheated his friends out of money. Tends to be the mama more than the dad. I don't know. There's a lot of alcoholic fathers out there, but a lot of serial killers got some serious mommy issues. So his location, Kansas and Missouri, and they're side by side up there at the top, you know. Let me look. Well, they're side by side. They're not at the top of the country, obviously. Kansas and but I like to be able to. So we went to Kansas City, so I know where that is. So Missouri is below Iowa. Kansas is below Nebraska. And Oklahoma is at the bottom of Kansas. So if that helps anybody at all. I don't have, my tablet is broken, so I can't show you. Check, hiding, fraud, theft, embezzlement. Wasn't nailed down. Oops, hold on. Sorry. I have a lot of tabs open. And I had to restart my computer, so. So, like, he started out wanting to be a priest, and I'm not sure why he wanted to do that, but he had a lot of disciplinary issues there, so they basically said, get out. So he didn't finish that. Then he went on and he didn't finish. He did 2 years of the radiology program or radiography, and he quit that. He didn't have good grades, so he wasn't a good student. I don't think he was overly smart. Roseanne, how you doing? So he started out in that way. And then eventually he started a bogus hydroponics farm. He had a bunch of shell companies. Basically, he was a guy all about fraud, but I think he was cheating on his wife the whole time. And then he eventually decided it was easier to get rid of people than to carry on affairs and have, you know. Oh, here we go. So he was active, his most active from 1984 to the early 2000s. He had aliases of John Osborne, John Turner, and a lot of people knew him as JR. I heard from in several videos, doting father, loving husband. He was considered an entrepreneur. Um, he had a normal family life with his wife and 4 kids. But there were also reports that he had a very short temper, especially with people who kind of poked at his image. I think he liked to present himself as this nice, cuddly, lovable husband and father. As a successful businessman, he continually made himself out to all the women he got involved with as a successful, well-to-do businessman. Aw, you guys are so sweet to each other. I'm doing good. I hope everybody else is doing okay. So image was very important to him, and I think that he had a very short temper. There are no reports of him abusing his wife or children that I could find. But, it's possible because these guys are often have volatile tempers. Carla's great. So he was ultimately arrested for 5 murders or 8 murders, 3 in Kansas and 5 in Missouri. He was suspected of many more, but they couldn't find the bodies. These ones here, they found the bodies. And when I tell you how they were found, you might remember him, because this would have been like 1984 to 2000 that he was doing this. I think most of his trial stuff was in the early 2000s. So what he started doing at the beginning was he would hire a woman to come and work for one of his companies and promise that a place to live would be provided, that there would be travel, that the great compensation and this sort of stuff. So one of the first women he let's see here. So what would happen is these women would come and take jobs, and they were supposed to be traveling with him, or sometimes they told their family they were going through training programs. And what he would have them do at some point during the early part of them meeting him was he would somehow get them to sign blank sheets of paper. Ladies, I'm going to tell you right now, if a man ever asks you to sign a blank sheet of paper, don't do it. Do not do it. Which he would then later use to write letters to the families to tell them. Like one woman wrote that she was fine. She'd met somebody else and she was going away, and she just didn't want to be in contact with her family. And in a couple cases, he presented these letters to the police when they came to question him about these missing women. So he was covering his tracks. The woman, for the whole part of the investigation until they finally arrested him, I think around 2000, they never found any bodies. The women just disappeared. And most often he would say, oh, they moved on, sometimes with another person. Sometimes he would just be like, well, they just up and moved and they're gone. But I will tell you that one of the he did engage in relationships, short-lived as they were, with a woman and her baby daughter, 6 months old. I guess after he killed her, he took the baby, and his brother and his sister-in-law couldn't have children, and they were looking to adopt and not having much luck. So he made it look like he had found somebody they could adopt from, and that if they paid him $8,300 in legal fees, that they could get this baby. So he basically sold this woman's baby after he killed her to his brother and his sister-in-law. Artist. He's not going to sign your name to artwork. And then the other instance where he got engaged or became involved with a woman with a kid was he got involved with a woman, and her child was older than a baby, in a wheelchair, had spina bifida. Apparently, yeah. um, and he did kill both of them. So as this progressed, it started out, he was hiring, and then, the internet became a thing around 1983, 84, 85, in that era. He became active in internet chat rooms and websites where he could meet for BDSM communities. And he would go out looking for women interested in being in a submissive relationship. And he managed to get several women to agree to be his sex slaves. And there were long involved contracts. One of the contracts had 105 line items on it. But most of the contracts involved them also giving him access to all of their financial information, which we know, he was a con man. He's looking for easy money. He never truly held a job. A lot of the jobs that he claims to have had were just, shell corporations where he was at the head, but he was making his money by embezzling from another company or through other fraudulent methods. So he had a lot of time to work on this. They don't even have, I couldn't even find an estimate on how many victims they think he had. A poor man's Mr. Gray. Well, I printed up some pictures of his victims and him for you guys. I'll show them in a little bit because I want to know what you think he looks like. Don't go looking on the internet. I want to know what you think he looks like before I show you the pictures. Yeah, so these women, they would get involved with him, and he would have conversations with them, with their family. And the police were, getting information from family members. This guy, the police had to come to him for 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Well, this woman, this woman's family says she moved here to be with you or to work for you or whatever it was. And now she's just gone. Partially helped by the fact that he was working in Missouri and Kansas. But apparently the whole time there was a guy kind of keeping track of it low key. He didn't have enough because they couldn't find any bodies. And there was just no trace of them afterwards beyond the letters that he provided. But I will tell you that he would get a P.O. box, or he had a P.O. box the whole time. And one of these women, he kind of, I guess, fake married. He convinced her they got married. He applied for a marriage license and all that, but he was already married. And so she thought she was married to him, but her alimony checks were coming to the P.O. box. So, and that may be why he targeted the woman and her child with spina bifida, because he continued to cash their benefits checks. In one case, up to 7 years after the fact. I think that's the lady with the getting paid alimony. So he was interested in the submissive sexual relationships, but also he was looking for victims. This was basically a for-profit operation on his part. He got off on controlling people. He apparently liked, to be very, I don't know a nice way to put this. At one point, and then as this went on, so first it was the communities where he could search out women, but he also started a pornography ring, or not, prostitution ring, specifically catering to men interested in BDSM. So one of these women he had working for him, she did something he didn't like, and he went in and he slapped her around. He pulled her by her hair, But he also, and this is very graphic, so I'm going to give you guys a second if you don't want to hear this, because it is, in my opinion, kind of gross, and it might be very disturbing for some of you. I'm going to put my hand out while I say this, and I'll take it away when I'm done. Mute your channel now if you do not want to hear this. He essentially raped her with a gun. He stuck it in her vagina, and he kept screaming at her. I'm not even going to repeat what he screamed, but it made an impression, and I think she's the one that finally turned him in, that got the police to look at what he was doing, and ultimately led to his arrest. So apparently the longer he was involved in these chat rooms, and then it became a prostitution thing, he eventually worked it into a money venture where he himself wasn't really doing any work. Okay, so let me see here. And this is another case of, like, the two women went missing close together at the beginning. They was relatively close together, but because they failed to pursue the case early on, which we hear a lot in these types of investigations with serial killers. Not enough. Maybe the women just wandered off. Maybe they met another man, But he was implicated in a number of missing person cases. And a couple of the videos and one of the articles I read suggested that it's likely that he got caught only because he got lazy about his connection to them. He used to try to send the letters and stuff. I think he stopped doing that. So this is the guy that eventually they found chemical drums with their bodies in them buried on his property. And then he had some property where he had some garages, and they found 3 more. They found 3 in the garage, and they found 5 buried on his property. It is, Roseanne. It's definitely. I do not disagree with you. He never expressed any remorse or acceptance of responsibility for what he did. That woman, I don't know. There's no real discussion in any of the things I read and looked at that the cops ever questioned his wife, or that his wife was aware. She ran a mobile home park, I guess. She was a manager. So there's no indication that she really knew what he was doing, but he brought home money. So she may have fully believed that he was a businessman, a relatively successful businessman. But he had a whole other side that I find it hard. I don't know. I always struggle with, did the family know? The fact that she stayed married to him basically until he went into jail for the final time gives me pause. But I don't think his children had any clue, But as he developed, he just became more cruel, more controlling. He was apparently into some very violent stuff. So his farm was in Kansas, and I think that the property and the garages were in Missouri. I think that's how that worked out. She was with him until in the 2000s. Her divorce didn't go through until the 2000s. That doesn't mean that they were even living together. If he was gone away on business a lot, he was obviously not taking these women home. And they lived in a trailer park, presumably. So she may not have been aware of them at all, other than, he would come home. They would spend time as a family. There was money in the bank. If she just saw him as a traveling businessman. plus 4 kids, remember? And she did have her own job. It's possible he just wasn't around a whole lot. Now there is some information out there. He he basically set himself up in the public eye through forgery. He got on with a company, forged signatures for the mayor and a bunch of other public officials, and invited everybody to a Man of the Year dinner where he was awarded and act surprised that he was awarded this. He basically set it up to make himself look better in the community, maybe get more business contacts, to seem more credible. But he was found out because the people who he was forging the recommendation letters for obviously read about it in the newspaper and went, we didn't do that. So his business image was important to him. So what do you guys think this guy looks like? No cheating and looking on the internet. These are his victims. And it's not a very good set of pictures, but I couldn't find any that included all of them. That was a particularly good source. But these are all his victims. So 1984, 1985, 1987, 1993, 1994. That's the mother and her daughter. 1999, 2000. So that's what all his victims look like. Anybody want to take a guess on what he looks like? Even just a basic description. I think somebody cheated. This is what he looked like. He is currently an 80-year-old great-grandfather. Still incarcerated. He got the death penalty, but it's never been executed. I think partially because he's got convictions in 2 different states, and one of the states does not have the death penalty. Not much to look at, right? You got close, girl. You got close. I would not have expected when it first came up. I wasn't expecting him to be a kind of doughy, balding older guy, middle-aged. You know. I'm just teasing you, Roseanne. I don't think you cheated. So that's him. Convicted of at least 8 murders. I'm guessing these women were not well treated based on the later evidence of the BDSM activity and the contracts and stuff, that these women were brutalized before they died. Terribly. You've talked to guys like that. That's scary, Carla, that there's a lot of them out there like that, but it's true. So yeah, here he is. Just your normal Joe. Looks like nothing spectacular about him. All right, Mari? You're thinking of the Ted Bundys, you know, and the guys like that, or the Charles Mansons, where they're clearly crazy. This is just an average guy. He could be anybody's dad or grandpa, you know. But he was not a nice man. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the video later tonight, and then I'm going to post the links to the video in Patreon and on Facebook. So I'm going to list some of the videos I watched and a couple of other things so that you guys can, if you want to, I'm not saying you have to, absolutely not. But if you're interested in hearing about this from other sources, because every version of every video is a little different, adds information. You can start to see where some stuff might be embellished. I'm not really either. I want a partner. I don't want to be controlled. In life and in sex, to be honest. I'm not, Andrea, how you doing? What's his name? His name is John Edward Robinson. He was also known as the slave master. So, but there's a lot of videos, but I'm going to include some of the videos I watched and some other information. I'll put it in the description box, and then I'll link that in Patreon and on Facebook. So if you guys want to watch some of the stuff that I did, but you can easily Google him on YouTube, or Google him, or go on YouTube and put in his name. There's dozens of videos. There's one that purports to be a documentary that's about an hour long. I did watch that. And then I watched several shorter ones. I read a couple of articles. I looked for pictures of the victims and other information like that. So that was our serial killer for the day. So let's, so there's him and his victims. He lured women with the promise of financial security, sometimes jobs, sometimes the promise of marriage or a long-term relationship. Safety and security is what he was selling, and he did not provide that. He provided them with horrible, violent, brutal deaths. Let's look at how long we've been on. About 40 minutes. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to make it short tonight simply because we were an hour later than expected because of computer issues. So I'm going to save these. I thought something that we might do at some point is make a little scrapbook of the killers we covered. Weekly serial killer. But we could maybe turn it into a scrapbook of what we've covered. He did not appear to have any serious drug issues or drinking issues. He was very concerned with his public appearance. So I don't, he wanted to be perceived a certain way, and he went to the point of forgery, making himself business, man of the year in a business to try and appear more successful than he really was. But he never really was successfully employed. Most of his income was from stealing from others. Oh, and I had some on why he gave the baby to his brother in the adoption. I think that he liked going to visit his brother and seeing this baby grow up and knowing that he killed her mother. I think that was a rush for him. So, yeah. And there was, I think there's joint custody now between the real grandparents and the people who, because they obviously didn't know. They might have known they were doing something shady by paying the brother, but they didn't know the full extent of what he did. So they still have partial custody of her, I do believe. Like a keepsake, one that grows older and that maybe he could prey on later. I don't know if he had intentions towards that, but I wouldn't be surprised. Because he didn't have any apparent interest in children or teenagers. These were all grown adult women that he preyed on. So that was my final thought on that. Give it some thought if you guys want to see us turn these. How old is she now? I think they renamed her Heather. Give me a second. That's one thing I didn't think to look at. How old is John? Okay, let me see if we get something on that. It looks like what happened to... Okay, so... She was 4 months old when she vanished in 1985. So 95 would be 10. 2005 would be 20. An adult. She's an adult now. And he is now 80 years old on death row. Or he's incarcerated. I don't know if he's still on death row. Let's see. Well, that's something to be thankful for. Chamos? Yeah. I didn't really look farther into that part because I didn't have enough time. Okay, there you go. That makes it a little easier. None of the reports really said how old she was now. I think they've kind of covered all. I don't think she did do some interviews, but I think probably at this point in her life, she doesn't want to be associated with that. I wouldn't. The man could aptly be described as a monster. So if you guys want to if we want to keep a journal record of some sort, even if we just put the stuff in a composition book and write a few notes down, let me know if you're interested in doing that. We can maybe do something like that on every other Thursday or something. I would want to have that the focus of my whole life. I think she is involved in a group that's trying to help. She would like to find her mother's body and give her a burial. I did read that because he won't tell. He doesn't want to risk more death sentences, I think, or he enjoys lording over these people that he won't tell exactly what he did, or where the rest of the bodies are that they did not find on his property. I imagine there's other property somewhere, or other family members had property that maybe they weren't living on, and it's possible he got rid of bodies that way. But his deal was putting them in chemical barrels and burying or storing them. That's how he got away with it for so long, because they never found any bodies. So, and he's 80 now. Maybe he'll have a deathbed confession where he finally, when they can't really do anything else to him, where he finally says how many victims and where the rest of the bodies are. That would give some of the families closure, but it's likely he'll just take it to his grave. He may, sometimes they get older and they know they're going to die, and they want that one last blip of, attention and fame. But it's possible he could take it to his grave. All right, so I know we didn't do a lot today, but we got in one more finished journal card with our victims and our killer who got killed. Trust me, he suffered. And we'll be doing more work coming up. Next Monday, do you guys have a preference for type of killer? Is this stuff too graphic? Because I know last week's was child killing children in a brutal way, and this was fairly graphic and disgusting. So are you guys okay with how this is going? Would you prefer to see some other kind of case next week to lighten it up? Any thoughts, ideas? Well, not nice ones, but Good night, Roseanne. Thanks for coming in. I'm gonna head out too. I just wanted to ask that, whatever intrigues you. I know. I just type in serial killers and I look at different descriptions and I pick based on whatever I think is interesting in the moment. And interesting being a relative term, because it's so far outside of the norm of human behavior. You kind of have to separate. I think it's interesting, even though I think it's also horrible. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not making anybody really, really uncomfortable. All right, so I will see you guys next week. I will be on tomorrow for Neighborhood of Teeny with some new pictures. However you guys are spending your days and nights, I hope it brings you great joy and happiness. Thanks for working with me through the whole technical difficulties thing. We finally got on here and had a little bit of a video and a chat. Loves you guys. Hopefully I'll see some of you tomorrow for the neighborhood of Teeny. Until then, until I see you next time. But I'm sorry, I messed up the whole outro. The end. Bright blessings and hugs and kisses to you all. You are made of awesome. Let's push the button. Bye, Janice. I'm sorry. Good night, ladies.